December 15th, 1944, 10:01 in the morning, Ormoc Road, near Limon, Leyte, Philippines. 5 Japanese tanks emerged from the jungle mist. Type 95 Hago light tanks, 7.4 tons of steel each, 37mm cannons, machine guns mounted on the hull and turret. They're advancing directly toward an American roadblock, single file, engines growling, treads churning mud. The roadblock has rifles, light machine guns, sandbags, fallen trees, and one M9 bazooka with 6 rockets. Here's the problem. The bazooka is a 2-man weapon. One soldier aims and fires. The other loads the rocket and provides security. Without the second man, the reload cycle takes 8 to 12 seconds. 8 to 12 seconds when the operator can't defend himself, can't run, can't shoot back, can't do anything but stand there with an empty tube while 5 tanks try to kill him. Battalion commanders consider solo bazooka operations suicidal. The manual says it can't be done. The math says it can't be done. The soldier assigned to the bazooka has 6 rockets. There are 5 tanks. He cannot miss a single shot. He cannot have a single mechanical failure. He cannot take too long on a single reload. If any of those things happen, he dies, and if he dies, the roadblock falls, and if the roadblock falls, the entire division loses control of the Ormoc Valley. Private First Class Dirk Vlug leaves his covered position. He's carrying a bazooka, 6 rockets, and a .45 caliber pistol. He's alone. In the next 25 minutes, he will destroy all 5 tanks, alone, with a weapon designed for 2 people without missing a single shot. This is the story of the highest tank kill ratio by a single bazooka operator in the history of the Pacific Theater. Dirk John Cornelius Vlug was born August 20th, 1916, in Maple Lake, Minnesota. His parents came from the Netherlands, Isaac Vlug and Michi Dekker, immigrants with the kind of modest ambition that working-class Europeans brought to America in the early 20th century. They weren't looking for fortune, they were looking for survival. The family started as subsistence farmers in rural Minnesota, growing what they could, selling what they couldn't eat, the kind of life where a bad harvest meant a hungry winter. When Dirk was 6 years old in 1922, the family moved to Grand Rapids, Michigan. Isaac had decided that farming wasn't going to work, too many mouths to feed, not enough land to feed them. He became a carpenter instead, building furniture, fixing houses, working with his hands, because that's what he knew how to do. The pay was better than farming. Not good, but better. The Vlug household had 7 children. Dirk was the second son, 4th born overall, 7 kids in a carpenter's house during the years leading up to the Great Depression. Then the Depression hit. There's no record that Dirk was ridiculed for poverty. No record of problems at school, no record of physical disabilities or social difficulties. What there is the record of a large family trying to survive the worst economic crisis in American history. A father who worked with his hands when there was work. A mother who stretched every dollar until it screamed. 7 children who learned early that nothing comes free and nothing comes easy. That kind of childhood doesn't show up in documents, but it leaves marks. April 21st, 1941, Kalamazoo, Michigan. Dirk Vlug enlists in the United States Army. He's 24 years old. Pearl Harbor is still 8 months away. America isn't at war yet. Vlug enlists anyway. Not because he's a born warrior, not because he's seeking glory or adventure, because it's what men of his generation do when they feel something coming. When the radio talks about war in Europe and war in Asia, and everyone knows it's only a matter of time before America gets pulled in. Vlug gets assigned to the 126th Infantry Regiment, 32nd Infantry Division, the Red Arrow Division, a unit formed from Michigan and Wisconsin National Guard reserves. His designation is cannoneer, artillery crew member, basic training in weapon systems and tactical coordination, standard infantry skills with a focus on light artillery support. Nothing in his records indicates he was a bazooka specialist. Nothing indicates advanced anti-tank training. He was a competent soldier in an army of millions of competent soldiers. That would have to be enough. The 32nd Division ships out to the Pacific in 1942. New Guinea first, the Papuan Campaign, jungle warfare against the Japanese in some of the worst terrain on Earth, heat that could kill you, humidity that rotted your boots off your feet, malaria that put more men in hospitals than Japanese bullets did. Vlug survives. Moro AI next. Another island, another campaign, More jungle, more Japanese, more friends who don't come home. Vlug survives. By late 1944, he has 2 years of combat experience in the Pacific. He knows how the Japanese fight, he knows their tactics, their weapons, their psychology. He knows what it sounds like when a Japanese machine gun opens up. He knows what it feels like to advance through jungle when every shadow might hide a man who wants to kill you. He's not a hero, he's not famous, he's not mentioned in any officer's report. He's just a soldier who keeps showing up, keeps doing his job, keeps coming back alive when others don't. That's the only qualification that matters. October 1944, General Douglas MacArthur fulfills his promise, I shall return. American forces invade the Philippines. The Battle of Leyte begins. It's the first step in liberating the islands that Japan captured 3 years earlier. The Japanese have 432,000 troops spread across the Philippines. General Tomoyuki Yamashita commands the defense. He knows the Americans are coming. He's been preparing for months. Leyte is the gateway. If the Americans control Leyte, they can advance to Luzon. If they control Luzon, the war in the Philippines is over. Japan loses its grip on Southeast Asia. The path to the home islands opens up. The stakes are absolute. November 14th, 1944, the 32nd Infantry Division lands on Leyte. Their mission is to drive south through the Ormoc Valley, link up with forces from 24th Corps advancing from the south. If the link-up works, Japanese forces on Leyte will be divided and compressed. Their coordinated defense will collapse. If the link-up fails, the campaign drags on for months, more dead, more wounded, more time for the Japanese to reorganize and reinforce. The 126th Infantry Regiment advances along Highway 2. The primary route through densely forested mountainous terrain. Every mile is a fight. Every hill is contested. The Japanese don't give ground easily. December 15th, 1944. The regiment establishes a roadblock on the Ormoc Road near Limon, a choke point, a critical position that controls Japanese movement northward and secures American supply lines. The roadblock isn't a fortress. It's not a bunker complex with concrete walls and interlocking fields of fire. It's an infantry position, sandbags, foxholes, fallen trees dragged across the road, rifles and light machine guns, and one bazooka with 6 rockets. Enough to stop infantry, enough to slow down a probing attack, not enough to stop armor. 10:01 a.m. 5 Japanese tanks emerge from the jungle. Type 95 Hago light tanks, the backbone of Japanese armored forces in the Pacific. They're not heavy tanks, not the monsters that fought in Europe, but to infantry soldiers with rifles, they're steel nightmares. Each tank weighs 7.4 tons. Maximum armor thickness is 12 millimeters. That's thin by tank standards, but rifle bullets bounce off it like rain. Each tank has a 37 millimeter cannon, muzzle velocity of 575 meters per second, capable of destroying any cover the Americans are hiding behind. Each tank has machine guns, hull-mounted, turret-mounted firing arcs that can sweep the entire roadblock. 5 tanks means 5 cannons, 10 machine guns, enough firepower to shred foliage and defoliate trees, enough firepower to turn the roadblock into a killing ground. The tanks advance in column formation, single file on the narrow road. They're not expecting serious resistance. American infantry usually runs from armor. That's the psychology of the tank. You don't have to kill everyone. You just have to convince them that staying means death. The Americans at the roadblock don't run. They can't. If they abandon this position, the Japanese push through, the choke point is lost. The division's advance through the Ormoc Valley is compromised. The roadblock has to hold. But the roadblock only has one weapon that can stop a tank. The M9 bazooka is a simple weapon. A tube, a trigger, an electrical firing mechanism. You load a rocket in the back, aim at the target, pull the trigger, the rocket motor ignites. The projectile flies toward the target at about 80 meters per second. The warhead is the key, M6A3 shaped charge, heat, high explosive anti-tank. A shaped charge doesn't defeat armor through brute force. It doesn't punch through steel like a bullet. It creates a focused jet of superheated copper plasma that burns through metal. The physics are elegant and terrifying. Nominal penetration 80 to 100 millimeters of rolled homogeneous armor. The Hago's maximum armor, 12 millimeters. The math is overwhelming. 80 millimeters of penetration against 12 millimeters of armor, a ratio of nearly 7 to 1. If the rocket hits the tank dies. There's no mechanical possibility of survival. The shaped charge will burn through the armor like a blowtorch through butter. But there's a catch. The bazooka is a crew-served weapon, two-man operation. One soldier aims and fires. The other soldier loads the rocket and watches for threats. The reload cycle takes 8 to 12 seconds. During those seconds, the operator is completely vulnerable. He can't shoot. He can't run. He can't defend himself. He's standing there with an empty tube while the enemy tries to kill him. That's why the manual requires 2 people. That's why battalion commanders consider solo operations suicidal. Vlug doesn't have a partner. The other members of his team are either dead, wounded, or positioned elsewhere. He's alone with 6 rockets and 5 tanks coming toward him. The math is simple. 6 shots, 5 tanks, no margin for error. The platoon leader looks at the situation. There are 3 options. Option 1, defensive retreat, abandon the roadblock, fall back to a secondary position, let the tanks through. Result, the Japanese armor advances unopposed, the division loses the choke point. American movement through the Ormoc Valley is compromised. The link-up with 24th Corps fails or gets delayed by weeks. Unacceptable. Option 2, coordinated response, call for battalion-level anti-tank support. Wait for a 57mm gun or a tank destroyer to be positioned. Hold defensively until help arrives. Result, support takes 30 minutes or more to arrive. The tanks will reach the roadblock in 5 minutes. Everyone dies waiting for help that won't come in time. Unacceptable. Option 3, desperate offensive, except that the regulations don't apply. Send 1 soldier with a bazooka to attack the tanks directly. Use movement, terrain, and aggression instead of firepower concentration. Result, according to the manual, death of the operator, probability of success, near 0. But this is the only option that preserves the roadblock mission. Vlug understands the math. He said later in interviews after the war, I felt that any time I could die, and it would only take 1 shot in the right place. That wasn't bravado. That was cold acknowledgement of reality. He understood that statistically, his survival probability was close to 0. The tanks had machine guns, they had cannons, they had armor, he had a tube and 6 rockets and no cover. He chose to try anyway. Not from desperation, not from panic, from a clear-eyed assessment that the alternative was strategically unacceptable. The roadblock had to hold. Someone had to stop the tanks. He had the only weapon that could do it. Vlug left his covered foxhole at approximately 10:04 m. He was carrying his M9 bazooka, 6 rockets, and a .45 caliber pistol. He was alone in a sector that should have required a squad. Vlug knew things that the manual didn't emphasize. He knew the shape charge penetration was overkill against Hago armor, 80 millimeters against 12. If he hit the tank was dead. That was physics, not hope. He knew something else too. The Hago turrets rotated manually by hand crank. A Japanese gunner trying to traverse 180 degrees needed 30 to 45 seconds under ideal conditions. If Vlug attacked from flank angles, from directions where the turret wasn't already pointing, the gunners couldn't track him fast enough. He'd have a window, small but real. And he knew the jungle. 2 years of combat in the Pacific had taught him how to move through vegetation, how to use trees and undergrowth as concealment, how to disappear between shots while the enemy searched for a target they couldn't find. The tanks had firepower, the tanks had armor, the tanks had numbers. Vlug had physics, geometry, and the jungle. It would have to be enough. First engagement, 200 yards. Vlug positions himself behind a fallen mahogany log, minimal cover. The log might stop rifle rounds. It won't stop a 37mm cannon shell. If the tanks spot him before he fires, he's dead. The lead tank advances toward the roadblock, machine guns firing. Cannon traversing, the crew doesn't know exactly where the American anti-tank weapon is positioned. They're spraying fire across the general area, hoping to hit something. Vlug aims. The bazooka's iron sights are simple. Front blade, rear aperture, line them up on the target. Account for the rocket's relatively slow velocity. Lead the target slightly if it's moving. He fires. The rocket motor ignites with a whoosh. The backblast kicks up debris behind him. The projectile crosses 200 yards in about 2 seconds. Impact. The shaped charge detonates against the lead tank's hull. Superheated copper plasma burns through 12 millimeters of armor like it isn't there. The jet continues into the crew compartment. The tank stops, smoke pours from the hatches. The crew never had time to scream. One shot, one tank. Second engagement. The crew of the second tank sees what happened to their leader. They know there's an American with a bazooka somewhere in the jungle. They can't see him, they can't find him, but they know he's there. The tank commander makes a decision, dismount, get out of the tank, find the American on foot, and kill him before he can reload. The crew starts climbing out of the hatches. Vlug sees them, 3 Japanese soldiers emerging from the steel coffin, reaching for their rifles. He doesn't have time to reload the bazooka. The rockets take 8 to 12 seconds to load. The Japanese will be on the ground and shooting at him in less than that. Vlug draws his .45 caliber pistol. 3 shots, fast, aimed. 1 Japanese soldier drops, dead. Another stumbles, wounded. The third scrambles back into the tank. The survivors seal the hatches. They're back inside, safe from pistol fire. Not safe from bazookas. Vlug has reloaded during the seconds they spent retreating. He aims at the second tank, fires. Impact, detonation. The shaped charge does what shaped charges do. 2 shots, 2 tanks. Third, fourth, and fifth engagements. 3 tanks remaining. They're advancing up the road now. The Japanese commanders know they've lost 2 vehicles, but they also know they have numbers. 3 tanks against 1 man with limited ammunition. They push forward. Vlug doesn't engage them head-on. That would be suicide. 3 tanks concentrating fire on a single position would shred him in seconds. Instead, he moves. He flanks to the right, uses the dense jungle as concealment, moves between firing positions while the Japanese gunners struggle to track a single soldier through foliage and smoke. The turrets can't keep up. They're rotating manually trying to find him, but Vlug is faster. He appears from an unexpected angle, fires, disappears into the jungle before they can respond. Third tank, flank shot, impact, destroyed. Vlug moves again. The remaining 2 tanks are firing wildly now. Machine guns raking the tree line. 37mm cannons blasting at shadows. They know he's out there. They just can't find him. 4th tank, another flank approach, another shot, another kill. 1 tank left, 1 rocket left. Vlug has no margin for error. If he misses, he's out of ammunition. He'll have a pistol against a tank. That's not a fight. That's an execution. He moves through the jungle, positions himself for the final shot. The last Hago is advancing cautiously now. The crew has watched 4 of their companions die. They know they're next. Vlug aims, takes his time. He has 1 shot. It has to count. He fires. The rocket crosses the distance, impacts the tank. The shaped charge detonates. The tank lurches. The driver loses control. The vehicle crashes down a steep embankment, tumbling off the road. Removed from action. 6 rockets fired, 5 tanks destroyed, 0 misses. Total duration 21 to 30 minutes. 1 man, a weapon designed for 2 people, solo operation under intense machine gun and cannon fire. Moving, flanking, reloading, firing, moving again. The highest tank kill ratio by a single bazooka operator in the history of the Pacific Theater. The roadblock holds. The position is preserved. The Japanese armor probe is destroyed. The division's advance through the Ormoc Valley continues. 1 week later, on December 22, 1944, American forces complete the link-up. 1st Cavalry and 24th Division from the north, 24th Corps from the south. Japanese forces on Leyte are divided. Their coordinated defense collapses. The Leyte campaign ends 7 to 10 days sooner than it would have if the roadblock had fallen. Hundreds of Americans, maybe thousands, live because one soldier refused to let 5 tanks pass. May 23, 1946. The War Department announces that Private First Class Dirk Vlug will be awarded the Medal of Honor. June 7, 1946. President Harry S. Truman personally presents the medal at a White House ceremony. The official citation describes what happened on December 15, 1944. Loading single-handedly, he destroyed the first tank, killing its occupants with a single round. As the crew of the second tank started to dismount and attack him, he killed one of the foe with his pistol, forcing the survivors to return to their vehicle, which he then destroyed with a second round. 3 more hostile tanks moved up the road, so he flanked the first and eliminated it, and then, despite a hail of enemy fire, pressed forward again to destroy another. With his last round of ammunition, he struck the remaining vehicle, causing it to crash down a steep embankment. The citation ends with the standard language about courage and devotion to duty, but the facts speak for themselves. 6 rounds, 5 tanks, 0 misses, alone. June 14, 1945. Vlug receives his discharge from active service. He goes home to Grand Rapids, Michigan, the same city where he grew up, the same city where his father worked as a carpenter to feed 7 children during the Depression. Vlug doesn't write a book, doesn't do the lecture circuit, doesn't turn his Medal of Honor into a speaking career or a political platform. He gets a job with the Postal Service. Mailman, 26 years carrying letters through the streets of Grand Rapids. Modest salary, steady hours, pension at the end. The man who destroyed 5 tanks alone with a weapon designed for 2 people spent the rest of his working life delivering other people's mail. The thing that defined Dirk Vlug after the war wasn't what he did, it was how he felt about what he did. Friends described him as intensely humble. His wife Angie said once, "A lot of other people flaunt it, and he was very upset about other Medal of Honor winners who flaunted it. He just wasn't that way." Vlug refused to become a public speaker, declined most media interviews. When people asked about December 15th, 1944, he changed the subject, talked about other soldiers, talked about the men who didn't come home, talked about anything except himself. He said his action was simply what had to be done, not exceptional, not heroic, just necessary. He was wrong about that, but he never believed otherwise. After the war, Vlug had hobbies: golfing, bowling, building birdhouses, quiet activities for a quiet man. But his favorite hobby was something else. Every month, Vlug organized picnics, gatherings for veterans, men who had served together in the Pacific, men who had watched friends die in jungles 10,000 miles from home. He didn't organize these picnics to talk about his own service. He organized them to preserve the bonds that combat creates, the brotherhood that only men who have faced death together can understand. Vlug spent decades of his life making sure those bonds didn't break, making sure the men who served weren't forgotten, making sure the living remembered the dead. That's what mattered to him. Not medals, not recognition, not fame. Connection, memory, brotherhood. November 4th, 1992. The state of Michigan awards Vlug the Distinguished Service Medal, the state's highest military honor. 1996. He receives honorary membership in the Military Order of Foreign Wars. These are the awards that come at the end of a life. The recognitions that say, "We haven't forgotten. We remember what you did." Vlug accepts them quietly, the way he accepted everything quietly. June 25th, 1996. Dirk John Cornelius Vlug dies in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He is 79 years old. The son of Dutch immigrants, The boy who grew up during the Depression with 6 siblings and a carpenter father. The soldier who spent 2 years fighting in the Pacific. The mailman who delivered letters for 26 years. The humble man who organized picnics every month so veterans wouldn't lose touch with each other. And the soldier who, on a December morning in 1944, left his covered position with a bazooka and 6 rockets, faced 5 Japanese tanks alone, and didn't miss a single shot. When people asked about that day, Vlug said he did what had to be done. Anyone would have done the same. He was wrong. Nobody had done the same before December 15th, 1944. Nobody did the same after. The highest tank kill ratio by a single bazooka operator in the history of the Pacific Theater. Solo operation of a crew-served weapon under conditions that the manual said were impossible. 6 shots, 5 tanks, 0 margin for error. But Dirk Vlug never believed he had done anything special. Maybe that's why he was able to do it. The men who think their heroes hesitate, they calculate. They worry about glory and recognition and what the history books will say. The men who think they're just doing their job don't hesitate. They see what needs to be done. They do it. They don't ask whether it's possible. They don't wonder whether they'll survive. They just move. Vlug moved. Out of his foxhole toward 5 tanks with 6 rockets and a prayer. And when it was over, when the smoke cleared and the tanks were burning and the roadblock still stood, he went back to his position and waited for the next order. Just another soldier, doing his job. Nothing special. December 15th, 1944, 10:01 in the morning, Ormoc Road, near Limon, Leyte, Philippines. 5 Japanese tanks emerge from the jungle mist. They're advancing on an American roadblock. The roadblock has rifles and machine guns and 1 bazooka with 6 rockets. The bazooka requires 2 people to operate. The reload cycle takes 8 to 12 seconds. Solo operation is considered suicidal by battalion commanders. Private First Class Dirk Vlug is alone. He has 6 rockets. There are 5 tanks. He cannot miss a single shot. Vlug leaves his covered position. He's carrying a bazooka, 6 rockets, and a .45 caliber pistol. 25 minutes later, 5 tanks are destroyed. 0 misses, 0 mechanical failures, 0 hesitation. The roadblock holds. The division advances. The campaign accelerates. Hundreds of Americans live because one man refused to wait for help that wouldn't arrive in time. When they gave him the Medal of Honor, Vlug said he just did what had to be done. He spent the rest of his life as a mailman, delivering letters. He organized picnics every month so veterans wouldn't lose touch. He built birdhouses in his spare time. He never believed he was a hero. He was wrong about that. But he was right about something else. Sometimes doing what has to be done is all that heroism is. 6 shots, 5 tanks, 1 man who didn't miss. That's the whole story.